History does not stumble into disaster. It marches, step by step, choice by choice. The attack on Pearl Harbor did not erupt from a clear sky. It was forged in years of ambition, desperation, and rivalry. Japan, once isolated, had risen like a storm from the east. Victories over China and Russia proved it could wound empires. But with triumph came hunger. Hunger for resources, land, recognition. An island nation that had tasted power now demanded a seat at the world's table. The Great Depression cracked economies across the globe. For Japan, it meant suffocation. Crowded islands, scarce oil, scarce steel. Its answer was not retreat, but conquest. Manchuria. China. The rape of Nanjing. Atrocities that shocked the world and forced America to act. Embargoes, sanctions, frozen assets. To Washington, it was pressure. To Tokyo, it was strangulation. The fuse burned shorter. Then came alliances, the Tripartite Pact with Hitler and Mussolini. A vow of steel, binding Asia to Europe's war. The world was splitting in two. The U.S. armed China, condemned Japan, cut off oil. Each move a tightening noose. Each move driving Tokyo further toward the one thing it feared and desired most, war with the United States. Pearl Harbor was never just a target. It was a gamble. Destroy America's Pacific Fleet in one crushing blow. Seize the seas, force a new world order. But gambles carry consequences. And this one would unleash a war so vast, so catastrophic, it would end with fire raining from the sky. The story of Pearl Harbor is not just how the war began. It is how the modern world was remade in blood, steel, and fire. The 19th century ends. The world believes Japan is small, backward, isolated, a silent archipelago on the edge of Asia. But silence is deceptive. Beneath it, a volcano stirs. In 1868, the Meiji Restoration shatters centuries of feudal slumber. Samurai traditions collide with Western cannons, steamships, railways. Japan transforms with terrifying speed, an empire in the making, forged out of urgency. In a single generation, peasants become soldiers, fishermen become factory workers, and the nation becomes something unrecognizable, modern, disciplined, hungry. It does not wait long to bare its teeth. 1. War with China. Swift. Brutal. Japan seizes Korea, carves influence from a dying Qing dynasty. The world blinks in shock. A rising power has emerged where none expected. 2. War with Russia. Impossible, they say. No Asian nation has ever defeated a European empire. But at Port Arthur, at Tsushima, Japanese guns thunder and Russian ships burn. The Tsar's navy lies broken on the sea floor. The myth of Western invincibility shattered. 3. Japan has declared itself to history. It will not be ignored. But victories breed hunger. An island empire has no oil, no steel, no coal. Every ambition is shackled by scarcity. The government knows expansion is survival, and expansion demands sacrifice. Peasants taxed, soldiers drilled, industry whipped into relentless motion. The people endure because they are promised glory. A nation of 70 million stands ready to fight for a dream. Japan as the master of Asia. The West watches uneasily. Admiration mixes with fear. America, Britain, the European empires, all sense the storm gathering across the Pacific. But none intervene. Not yet. For now, Japan is celebrated. A model of modernization. A civilized partner among nations. Its leaders wear Western suits, speak Western tongues. Diplomats shake hands. But behind the handshakes, knives are being sharpened. Japan does not want equality. It wants dominance. It wants an Asia free from Western masters, an Asia ruled from Tokyo. The empire has awakened. Its armies march in lockstep. Its fleets slice across oceans. Its ambitions burn hotter with every conquest. The rising sun flag unfurls wider each year. But the world has yet to grasp the truth. This is no passing storm. It is a hurricane building, pulling nations into its spiral. And soon, nothing will stand untouched in its path. The drums of war are already beating. And with each beat, the volcano rumbles louder. The question is no longer if Japan will strike again. The question is where. The empire has risen. But empires do not feed on pride alone. Japan's islands are small. Its soil thin. Its mountains devour farmland. Its cities swell with mouths it cannot feed. And as the world spirals into the Great Depression, scarcity becomes suffocation. Factories run on coal and steel. Armies march on oil. Japan has none of it. To survive, it must take 1. Manchuria. a land of vast resources, rich soil, and railroads stretching across China's north. Under the rising sun, Japanese troops move with ruthless precision. Explosions shatter villages. Soldiers pour across borders. The world calls it an incident. In truth, it is invasion. 2. The League of Nations condemns it. Tokyo laughs, then walks out. The old order of diplomacy is useless. Japan will not bow to lectures. It will rule by force. Occupation hardens into empire. Manchukuo, a puppet state, a scar across Asia. Japan plants its flag, builds factories, and bleeds the land dry. Millions suffer so the empire can breathe. But it is not enough. 1. The Marco Polo Bridge. Gunfire at night, sparks in the dark. Within days, a skirmish becomes full war. Japan storms into China proper, unleashing fire and terror on a staggering scale. Cities fall like dominoes. Shanghai burns. And then Nanjing. 2. 6 weeks of horror. Civilians slaughtered. Women violated. The Yangtze River choked with corpses. The rape of Nanjing shocks the world. Even hardened generals whisper of the brutality unleashed. But Tokyo does not retreat. It justifies. It defends. It presses forward. The empire is expanding, but at a cost. War drains its coffers. Soldiers bog down in endless Chinese resistance. Yet still, Tokyo believes conquest is survival. Without new lands, without resources, Japan will collapse. And so it pushes further. Southeast Asia. The Pacific. Each move a gamble. Each conquest a promise that the empire will endure, if it can outpace its enemies. But enemies are watching. America sends aid to China. Britain clenches its colonial fists. The Netherlands guard their Indies. The encirclement tightens, unseen but inevitable. In Tokyo, whispers grow louder. The West is not a rival, it is an enemy. If Japan does not strike first, it will be strangled into submission. Hunger becomes rage. Scarcity becomes ambition. And ambition demands blood. The empire cannot stop. It will not stop. And soon, that hunger will collide head-on with the one power capable of breaking it forever. The United States. The arsenal of democracy. By the late 1930s, Washington was watching. Japan's expansion across Asia was no longer distant headlines. It was a thundercloud rolling toward the Pacific. America, still scarred by the Great Depression, still wary of foreign wars, could not ignore the storm forever. At first, the response was subtle. Words. Protests. Condemnations. But Japan did not yield. Shanghai burned. Nanjing bled. And U.S. patience snapped. Sanctions began like small cuts. Steel, scrap iron, machinery. Then the lifeblood of modern war, aviation fuel. Each embargo a tightening coil around Tokyo's throat. The message was clear. Stop the expansion, or suffocate. But Japan read the message differently. Not restraint. Not peace. It saw encirclement. A plot to cripple its empire before it reached full strength. The United States grew bolder. American factories roared back to life, turning out tanks, rifles, planes, not yet for U.S. soldiers but for China. Chiang Kai-shek's embattled armies fought with American aid. U.S. pilots, the Flying Tigers, prepared to challenge Japanese skies. And then came oil. 1. America froze Japan's assets, cut off nearly all oil exports. 80% of Japan's supply, gone overnight. Without oil, its navy would rust, its planes would fall silent, its empire would starve. 2. It was not simply pressure. It was a chokehold. In Washington, leaders believed sanctions might force Japan to retreat. In Tokyo, the reaction was the opposite. Withdrawal meant humiliation. Collapse. Death of the empire. The embargo did not weaken resolve, it hardened it. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, America was stirring. Industry rearmed. Shipyards hammered steel into carriers, cruisers, destroyers. Roosevelt spoke of an arsenal of democracy. The United States was not yet at war, but it was building for it, preparing for the day the storm broke. The stakes were clear, one side tightening the noose, the other sharpening its sword. Each day brought the Pacific closer to ignition. And deep within Japan's high command, voices began to whisper the unthinkable. If America's arsenal could not be stopped, if its factories could not be silenced, then only one option remained. Strike first. Strike hard. Strike so violently that the United States would be crippled before it could fight. A preemptive blow. A gamble of empire. The fuse had been lit. The only question, where would the first flames fall? The year is 1940. Europe is burning. Hitler's blitzkrieg has smashed Poland, crushed France, and now stalks Britain across the skies. Mussolini clings to the Reich, dragging Italy into a war it cannot win. Across the oceans, the world holds its breath. And Japan watches with cold calculation. For Tokyo, Europe's chaos is opportunity. Western empires, Britain, France, the Netherlands, are weakened, distracted, bleeding. Their colonies in Asia, Malaya, Burma, the Indies, are fat with resources, yet poorly defended. To Japan, they are ripe fruit waiting to fall. But striking alone is dangerous. America lurks across the Pacific. Its factories are awakening. Its embargoes bite deeper each month. If Japan is to seize its empire, it must shield itself with allies as ruthless as itself. September 1940. The Tripartite Pact. Berlin, Rome, Tokyo. 3 signatures that redraw the map of global war. Germany, Italy, Japan. The Axis. A vow of steel. If one is attacked by a power not yet in the war, the others will rise in defense. A warning aimed squarely at Washington. The pact is more than paper. It is a declaration. Japan ties its fate to Hitler's armies and Mussolini's fleets. Victory or death together. Tokyo's gamble is bold. By aligning with the fascist powers, it believes America will hesitate. Why risk war with 3 enemies at once? Why intervene when oceans offer safety? The Axis bet is simple. Fear will paralyze democracy. But fear is a double-edged blade. In Washington, Roosevelt studies the pact and sees not hesitation, but inevitability. The world is splitting. Democracies against dictatorships. Freedom against conquest. Japan, meanwhile, strikes south. It marches into French Indochina, exploiting the corpse of fallen France. New air bases, new naval footholds, closer to Britain's Singapore, closer to America's Philippines. Each step a challenge. Each step another turn of the screw. The world edges closer to total war. For Japan, the pact is armor. For America, it is a warning. And for history, it is the point of no return. The lines are drawn. Allies and enemies locked into a collision course. And in the shadows of this pact, one man begins to plan the boldest strike in modern warfare. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mind who will gamble everything on one morning of fire. Diplomacy in shadows. Autumn 1941. The world holds its breath. On the surface, Tokyo and Washington are still talking. Diplomats in suits, handshakes across polished tables, the illusion of peace. Behind closed doors, tea is poured, notes exchanged, words like compromise and negotiation, spoken with careful courtesy. But it is theater. Every meeting masks a deeper truth. Neither side intends to yield. America demands retreat. Withdraw from China. End aggression. Restore stability. To Roosevelt's cabinet, these terms are non-negotiable. If Japan stays its course, Asia burns. Tokyo hears only humiliation. To abandon its conquests would unravel the empire, disgrace its army, topple its leaders. No nation survives by surrendering its lifeblood. And so the diplomats smile, while generals sharpen their blades. In November, Japan presents proposals. Economic concessions. Promises of peace, thin, empty, desperate to buy time. For even as ambassadors bow in Washington, fleets are already moving in silence across the Pacific. The American negotiators do not trust Tokyo's words. Roosevelt senses the storm. Intelligence intercepts. Magic decrypts, whisper of hidden intentions. But the pieces do not yet form a picture. Is Japan bluffing? Striking in Southeast Asia? Or preparing something far worse? Time runs out. November 26, 1941. Secretary of State Cordell Hull delivers America's final message, the Hull Note. Its demand is absolute. Withdraw from China, abandon the Tripartite Pact, renounce aggression. For Tokyo, it is a dagger in the chest. A demand not of peace, but of surrender. The cabinet rages. The emperor hesitates. The generals press forward. They do not see options. They see destiny. Behind the polite facades of embassies and telegrams, the countdown has begun. Ambassadors linger in Washington, still performing the charade. But far across the ocean, 6 carriers slip from Japanese harbors, their decks crowded with aircraft. Engines silent. Radios dark. Sailing eastward, into the vast black of the Pacific. The carriers, the true heart of modern naval power, were not in the harbor that morning. The fuel tanks, the repair docks, untouched. America still has a beating heart. A wounded giant, yes. But now awake. Now enraged. Yamamoto himself whispers prophecy. I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. He is right. From the ashes of Pearl Harbor rises a war machine unlike any in history. A nation united not by conquest, but by vengeance, survival, and an unshakable will to fight. The Japanese gamble has lit a fire they cannot extinguish. And that fire is spreading. Across oceans. Across continents. Into the very heart of empire itself. The Pacific War has truly begun. The tide turns. At first, Japan's gamble appears unstoppable. Within months of Pearl Harbor, the rising sun spreads like wildfire across Asia and the Pacific. The Philippines collapse. Singapore, the Gibraltar of the East, falls in weeks. British warships, the Prince of Wales and Repulse, sent to stop Japan, are sunk in hours. Dutch colonies, rich with oil and rubber, vanish into Tokyo's grasp. Burma, Malaya, the East Indies, all fall like dominoes. To the world, it looks as if Japan's empire is invincible. But victory breeds overreach. The empire stretches too far, too fast. Supply lines thin. Occupied peoples resist. And the United States, wounded but not broken, begins to strike back. Doolittle's raid, April 1942. 16B, 25 bombers launched from the deck of the USS Hornet. A mission thought impossible, Tokyo itself bombed. Damage is light, but the psychological blow is devastating. Japan's leaders are shaken. If America can reach the homeland, no city is safe. Then comes Coral Sea. May 1942. For the first time in history, two navies clash without sight of one another. Aircraft carriers, not battleships, decide the fight. The battle is costly, but Japan's advance toward Australia is halted. The myth of unstoppable conquest begins to crack. And then, June 1942. Midway. American cryptographers, breaking Japanese codes, uncover the plan. Admiral Chester Nimitz sets the trap. When Japan's fleet moves to seize Midway, American carriers lie in wait. On June 4th, waves of U.S. dive bombers descend on Japan's carriers. In minutes, the tide of war shifts forever. 4 carriers, the pride of Yamamoto's fleet, erupt into fire. Planes, pilots, fuel, all consumed in inferno. Japan's naval power is gutted in a single day. The rising sun falters. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, Japan retreats. Its aura of invincibility shattered. Its empire suddenly fragile. But Midway is not just a battle, it is a turning point. From this moment, Japan fights on defense. America seizes the initiative. Factories back home churn out ships faster than Japan can sink them. Carriers slide off production lines in numbers Tokyo cannot match. Pilots are trained, armed, and launched by the thousands. The United States is no longer scrambling to survive. It is preparing to crush. The Pacific War has shifted. The tide is no longer rising for Japan. It is receding. And soon, with each battle, each island seized, the empire that dreamed of ruling Asia will find itself drowning in the very ocean it sought to command. Midway is the breaking point. The moment the rising sun begins to dim. Japan has lost 4 carriers, hundreds of planes, irreplaceable pilots. For an island empire with limited resources, it is a wound that cannot heal. For the United States, it is ignition, the giant not only awake but advancing. Now begins the long, brutal grind, island by island, mile by mile, across the Pacific. Guadalcanal, 1942. A name burned into history. Jungle thick, heat suffocating, disease rampant. Marines land, digging in under endless waves of Japanese assaults. Night attacks, bayonet charges, suicide missions. The ground is paid for in blood, American and Japanese alike. But after 6 savage months, the island is secured. The myth of Japan's unstoppable infantry is shattered. The United States learns to fight in jungles, across reefs, on volcanic rock. Learns to coordinate carriers, aircraft, artillery, and amphibious assaults with machine-like precision. Each island seized becomes a springboard for the next. Each victory brings Japan's homeland closer into range. Tarawa, Saipan, Guam, Leyte Gulf. At Leyte in 1944, the largest naval battle in history erupts. The Japanese gamble again, throwing their fleets into one desperate attempt to smash the American advance. But the U.S. Navy, vast and unyielding, annihilates them. Japan's naval power is broken beyond repair. Its battleships are relics, its carriers empty shells without planes to launch. In the skies, American bombers begin to reach Japan itself. Cities ignite. Firestorms consume Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya. The land of the rising sun burns under waves of incendiaries. And then the unimaginable. Kamikaze. Pilots turned into weapons, slamming their planes into American ships in suicidal fury. Young men trained not to return, but to die. Each attack a symbol of desperation, of an empire willing to sacrifice its youth rather than surrender. Ships are torn open, sailors die in fire, but the strategy cannot turn the tide. America builds faster than kamikazes can destroy. By 1945, Japan is cornered. Its empire collapsed, its cities in ruins, its armies starving on distant islands. The dream of dominance is gone, replaced by survival. But survival is slipping away. For in New Mexico, a new weapon has been born. A weapon unlike any in human history. A weapon that will decide the war and rewrite the future of the world itself. The Pacific War is about to end, not with surrender on the battlefield, not with exhaustion, but with fire from the heavens. And Japan will be the first to face it. The world remade in ashes. The empire is broken. Its fleets lie at the bottom of the Pacific. Its armies starve on distant islands. Its cities burn under waves of American bombers. But Japan will not yield. In the summer of 1945, the war enters its final apocalyptic stage. Okinawa, April to June. The bloodiest battle of the Pacific. American Marines and soldiers claw their way across beaches and ridges, facing an enemy dug into caves, tunnels, bunkers. Kamikazes rain from the sky, sinking ships in suicide fury. The island becomes a slaughterhouse. 200,000 dead, soldiers, civilians, men, women, children. Okinawa is not just a victory, it is a warning. If invading Japan itself costs this much blood, what price will the homeland demand? American commanders calculate. A land invasion could mean millions dead. A war without end. And then the weapon. July 16, 1945. In the New Mexico desert, the earth shakes. A blinding flash. A new sun rises in the wasteland. The first atomic bomb explodes, and with it, history changes forever. Generals and scientists watch in awe and terror. One whispers words from scripture. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. The weapon is ready. The decision made. August 6th. Hiroshima. A single B-29, the Enola Gay, flies above the sleeping city. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb falls. In seconds, Hiroshima ceases to exist. A flash hotter than the sun incinerates tens of thousands. Buildings vanish. Shadows are burned into walls. Survivors stumble through ruins, skin melting, eyes blinded. The city is gone. 3 days later, Nagasaki. Another bomb. Another city erased. The message is undeniable. Resist, and Japan faces extinction. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito speaks to his people. His voice, never before heard by ordinary citizens, crackles over the radio. We must endure the unendurable. Japan surrenders. The war is over. But peace comes at a cost beyond comprehension. By war's end, over 70 million are dead worldwide. Cities reduced to rubble. Families shattered. Empires dissolved. The world remade not in triumph, but in ashes. Yet out of the devastation, a new order rises. America emerges as a superpower, its industries unmatched, its military triumphant. The Soviet Union stands as rival, its armies stretched across Eastern Europe. A cold war begins before the hot one has ended. The globe is divided not by oceans, but by ideology. Japan, once the predator, becomes the occupied. Its cities rebuilt not for war, but for peace. Its constitution rewritten, its empire dismantled. The rising sun is lowered, its ambitions extinguished. But the memory of Pearl Harbor endures. It is more than a battle, more than an attack. It is the spark that dragged America into global war. The chain reaction that led from a quiet harbor in Hawaii to the firestorms of Tokyo to the atomic dawn of Hiroshima. One morning, one gamble, one explosion of violence that altered the fate of nations. The story of Pearl Harbor is not just the story of America versus Japan. It is the story of how ambition can ignite catastrophe, how miscalculation can unleash apocalypse. It is the story of how the modern world was forged in the crucible of war, blood, steel, and fire. And it leaves us with a question that still burns, decades later. If mankind could not stop the road to Pearl Harbor, can it ever stop the road to the next one? The final chapter of that December morning is not closed. It is a warning, echoing across time, whispering through every flash of conflict. every rising tension, every nation sharpening its sword. History does not sleep. It waits. And somewhere, in the silence between wars, another storm is always gathering.